It wasn't really about offers. That's what people keep missing when they talk about the Miami Dolphins and that quiet trade deadline. Offers were there, plenty of them, apparently flying in like curious birds, testing the water. But the Dolphins didn't bite. Not this time. And then, just when the noise had started to fade, a new name floated to the surface, Zach Sieler. That one hit like a soft thud. Unexpected, a little confusing, maybe even unsettling. Reports say the Dolphins got calls about him. Teams wanted to know if the defensive tackle, the guy who's been grinding in the trenches, could be had. But Miami wasn't interested unless someone was willing to pay high. A day 2 pick or better. That kind of value doesn't come easy. And it's clear they weren't about to hand him over for pocket change. It's funny how things shift. A week ago, nobody thought Sieler was even part of the conversation. He's been part of the backbone of that defense. Not the flash, not the headline maker, but the kind of player who shows up every Sunday with the lunch pail mentality. Still, the rumor was out there. And that's the thing. Once a name gets mentioned, it's hard to put it back in the box. He wasn't alone either. Jalen Waddle, Bradley Chubb, those names got tossed around too. That's how it goes when a team starts to wobble, when the season's weight feels heavier than expected, when a 2-7 record turns from disappointment to reality. You start hearing things you didn't expect to hear. Players you thought were safe suddenly don't feel so safe. And even when no deals actually happen, the air gets thick with what-ifs. The Dolphins didn't make any moves beyond sending Jalen Phillips to the Eagles for a 4th-round pick. That one already felt weird enough. You trade away a young pass rusher, you send him off to a contender, and suddenly you're left looking around the locker room, trying to convince yourself everything still makes sense. But the silence after that trade deadline, it said a lot, maybe more than words could. There's a pattern in all this. When a team's been struggling, when leadership changes mid-season, when rebuild starts to echo through the hallways, even if no one wants to say it out loud, that's when every conversation starts to sound like a potential goodbye. The Jets did it. They went all in, moved big names, shook the walls. Quinnen Williams to Dallas. Sauce Gardner to Indy. Chaos. But the Dolphins? They held still. And maybe that says something too. Because maybe this isn't about desperation or about flipping the page too soon. Maybe it's about trying to hold on to what's still worth something, even if it's bruised. So why did Sieler stay? Why did they decide that, of all the moves they could make, that one wasn't it? He's having a tough season, no question. The kind that makes you wonder what's missing, what's changed. But even through that, there's still this understanding. He's one of the few steady hands left. Since coming over from the Ravens off waivers, he's been part of the heart of this defensive line. Not glamorous, not headline-grabbing, but solid, dependable, familiar. And maybe that's exactly why you keep him. Because when everything around you feels uncertain, front office changes, questions about leadership, whispers about rebuilds, you don't trade away the guys who still give your locker room some kind of heartbeat. Plus, there's that contract. The extension from the summer. $25 million guaranteed and signing bonus. That's not a number you can just erase if you suddenly decide to move him. That's a number that stays on your books, hangs around, weighs down your cap. You can't just trade that away like a bad memory. And beyond the money, there's something almost symbolic about it. Teams don't usually extend a player just to turn around and ship him out months later. You don't hand a guy that kind of commitment and then pack his bags before the ink's even dry. So, yeah, financially it makes sense he stayed. But emotionally, there's more to it. Because even if Sieler's not having his best year, he's part of that foundation. The younger guys, rookies like Kenneth Grant, Jordan Phillips, Zeke Biggers, they're still learning. They need someone who's been through it, someone who understands the grind. You can't just fill that with a draft pick. That kind of presence doesn't show up on stat sheets. And if we're being real, it's not just about Sieler. It's about what this team is right now. They're trying to walk a tightrope, holding onto the pieces that matter, trying not to admit that maybe the rebuild has already started, even if no one said it outright. You can almost feel it. That quiet tension, the kind where everyone's smiling for the cameras, but behind the scenes, they're wondering who's next, what's next, when it's next. Then there's Mike McDaniel. Calm voice, sharp mind, steady presence. But even he seemed a little distant when he talked about the trade deadline. Before practice Wednesday, He laid out how the decisions went down. Brandon Shore, Champ Kelly, himself, all reporting to Stephen Ross. The circles tight, but the tone? Cautious. Controlled. He didn't drop names, didn't show his cards. But you could tell there were lines drawn somewhere. Deals floated, conversation started. Maybe even offers close enough to make you think twice. And yet nothing. McDaniel said something that stuck. He said deals aren't close until they're done. That it's not about almost. It's about done or not done. There's no in-between. And that's such a coach thing to say. But also kind of true, right? In this league, you either pull the trigger or you don't. You either take the leap or you stand still. He also said he was just glad when 4 o'clock came and went because it meant he could get back to thinking about football, about Buffalo, about moving forward, about something that actually happens on the field. You can almost feel the exhaustion in that. The kind of exhaustion that comes not from losing games, but from carrying uncertainty around. Because that's what this trade season felt like for Miami, uncertainty. A team trying to figure out who it really is, and maybe not liking the answer just yet. So yeah, no trades. Except the one that already happened. But maybe that's not the whole story. Maybe the real story is that the Dolphins are standing in this weird middle ground, too good to tear it all down, too inconsistent to believe they're close. And Sealer, Waddle, Chubb, they're just names in that tension. Players caught between what was supposed to be and what actually is. Because remember, not that long ago, this roster was built to win now. Fast offense, explosive defense, youth energy, swagger. But the reality of the NFL hits harder than any blitz. Things change fast. One injury, one bad month, one wrong decision up top, and suddenly you're staring at the standings wondering how it slipped away. And now, after the GM change, after the talk of rebuilding, it's fair to ask, what's next? Who's safe? Who's part of the long-term plan? Who's just waiting for the next call that changes everything? Maybe that's why the Dolphins held firm. Maybe McDaniel and the front office looked around and realized tearing things down isn't the same as building them back up. Maybe they saw value in continuity, in keeping a few familiar faces around. Maybe they're tired of starting over. And for all the frustration, all the noise, all the what-ifs, there's still something to be said for that kind of restraint. Because the easy move would have been to sell. Dump veterans, stockpile picks, admit defeat, start the next chapter. Fans have seen it before. It's predictable. But this time, maybe they chose the harder thing. To keep going, even when it's messy. That doesn't mean it's comfortable. You can bet there were players watching their phones Tuesday, waiting to see if they'd be packing bags. Some relief came at the deadline. Some confusion too. But that's life in the NFL. 1 week you're part of the plan. The next you're a rumor. Sealer, though, stays in Miami. And for now, maybe that's the quiet win in all this. The guy who's been steady. The one who does the dirty work. He's still there. Still grinding. Still wearing aqua and orange. And maybe that's what this moment is about. Not the trades that didn't happen. Not the deals that almost did. But the choice to hold onto something that still matters. Even when it's not shining as bright as it used to. Because the truth is, a team isn't just made of stars. It's made of moments like this. Of holding the line when everyone expects you to break it down. So the Dolphins stay as they are for now. Bruised but breathing. Frustrated but not finished. And maybe, just maybe, that silence at the deadline wasn't hesitation. Maybe it was conviction. The kind that doesn't always make headlines, but sometimes makes history later. Maybe it's not about what they didn't do. Maybe it's about what they still believe they can.